like him. He's a nice boy.
Why would I do that to him?
All right, we're streaming on YouTube.
Roger's got his hat on. I didn't even notice. Good stuff.
I have my hat. I could pretend.
Bye.
It's branding. Good branding.
Oh, it was so funny. I posted a photo of myself wearing it on Friday because I was all excited. Didn't make the
hilarious.
show, but a lot of people were like, "Love it. Where do I get one?" So
you just go to Sarah's house. That's how you get one. There's only gonna be
don't
one.
take Sarah's. It's the only one she has.
You can get one like it.
Yeah.
Don't actually take Sarah's hat.
Yeah. Leave her hat.
I'm not a fan of sharing hats in general.
No.
Hats are,
Hats are a thing best left on one head.
Mm-hmm.
As my pappy used to say.
I believe that's on your family crest somewhere.
Yes. Mario et solo hatto.
Especially because hats are often, at least in my case, a day when you have given up. So, have too many of those in a row. You don't want to wear my hat.
It doesn't take much to push me into wearing a hat on the show either. For similar reasons. Yes, people watching. I am here. I'm even awake.
Tom is back. Hooray.
Yay.
When did you get back, actually? Saturday?
I got back 3.5 hours before I left on Saturday morning.
Did you were you able to sleep and get back into the zone?
Big fan of melatonin. Want to shout out to my doctor for recommending that. Definitely helped me sleep more on the plane than I usually do, but I still didn't sleep a lot. So it was a little rough Saturday. We left at 11 a.m. Saturday and got in at 7:30 a.m. Saturday. 16-hour flight, I think. Well, it might have been more like 14 coming back.
Time travel is real.
Yeah. Well, I missed Saturday on the way out because we left at 10 p.m. Friday and got in at 7:30 a.m. Sunday. So I didn't even have that Saturday. It's just gone.
Well, you got it back later.
Yeah. So I got another Saturday on a plane and then a whole Saturday after that. That was the weird thing is we got home and we realized we're home right now and awake earlier than we would be on a normal Saturday. We have the entire Saturday.
Except that, you were exhausted.
Actually, it wasn't too bad. I was surprised when we actually got home. I was all right. I'd slept just enough and it was sunny out, but yeah, by 5 or 6, Eileen took a nap. I made myself not. I walked the dogs and stuff. By 5 or 6, though, I was like, got to keep my eyes open.
So when you guys came back from the airport, did you go by to pick up the dogs or you went home and then?
No, we went home first. They weren't going to be ready because we wanted them to have a bath after 2 weeks boarding. So we picked them up at 2.
Well, I imagine they were very happy to see you.
They were very happy.
Did I leave any lights on? I know there was the one in the okay.
Well, you. No, everything was as it should be.
Okay. Because I knew the light was on over the laundry room, but I thought you might want it there, so I left it.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about my lighting strategy too much.
Oh, sorry.
Then people will know, hey, when that light's on.
Well, I actually have photo sensors on the lights that I use on the exterior, so they're always on.
Yeah.
So try to find when I'm not home.
But yeah, no, everything was good. All right. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Sure.
Let's do an episode of the Daily Tech News Show then.
I hope I remember how to do this. It's been 3 days.
It's been.
Tom's been gone. It's mayhem.
It's been more than a week for me.
Same here.
It's been, yeah. It's been,
Iyaz, when were you on last time?
I don't remember.
I think it was last year. Right? No, you were on 3 months ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
I'm on quarterly. That's the goal.
All right, here we go. 3, 2.
Do you like listening to advertisements? Me neither. Want to help and support creators directly? Then head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support and help us reach our new milestone today.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, May 29th, 2018. In Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from Up a Ladder Studio, I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
Up a Ladder Studio. Is that new? Have you said that before? I like that.
No, I'm in the loft. I figured it'd be better than saying loft studio.
Up a ladder without a care in the
That's
world.
me.
It's good to
Or
have
a
you
hat.
here.
I'm without a hat.
Big thanks to Sarah Lane and our producer, Roger Chang, for holding down the fort the past 2 weeks while I've been gone. The shows were great. I enjoyed every one of them.
They were fantastic. Possibly.
Well,
some of the
Roger and I
best.
chuckled amongst ourselves that although Tom was on vacation, he was listening to every show.
He always listens.
Well, because this is,
If
this
one
is
day
us.
he decides to sell the show to some nameless corporation, he'll still listen.
It was my morning. It was my morning listen in Australia. It was very nice.
No, it was great. We missed you a lot. But with Roger's help and, of course, all of our contributors, we held down the fort and everything ran smoothly and the audience was great and everybody.
I would say you did more than just hold down the fort. You built the fort. You improved the fort. The fort was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Around it.
Yeah. I hyperlooped the fort.
All right. Enough of this. Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Apple's HomePod smart speaker can now play in multiple rooms simultaneously and in stereo mode via AirPlay 2 in iOS 11.4. Apple announced this about 4 months ago. HomePods can also sync with other AirPlay 2 enabled speakers. Apple also announced that HomePod will be available in Canada, France, and Germany starting on June 18th. iOS 11.4 has a few other features, including messages and iCloud support.
Uber's new panic button is now live in the United States, so riders can get immediate help in the case of an emergency during their ride. It's part of a new safety center within the Uber app that includes info on the driving screening process, insurance protection, community guidelines, etc. Uber previously tested the panic button in India, and Uber says a similar button for drivers will be added soon. Let's talk a little bit more about what's going down in the down under, near but not in Australia.
I was so excited to talk about this article. The Papua New Guinean government is banning Facebook for a month in order to crack down on fake users and see how the service affects its population. Communication Minister Sam Basil said his department will conduct research and analysis on who was using the platform and how. Papua New Guinea has around 7 million people, but recent stats on internet use have put internet penetration at just 12%. The whole country taking out Facebook.
Don't know enough about Papua New Guinean politics to say, but it does seem from the outside as if this is sort of a PR play, as if the government is saying, we've been hearing about this controversy and we want to appear to be doing something about it.
Well, and in other countries, not this particular one, sometimes these sorts of things happen before elections or something that's going to be happening in the near future that it might actually have some significance to. I have not been to Papua New Guinea, but 12% of a population of 7 million using the internet in general, even if all of those people were using Facebook, it's a pretty small sample size. And a month of not using Facebook, I'm not totally sure what kind of analysis you're going to get about how the population differs between having it and not, but it's interesting.
Yeah, and you a lot of times in low internet penetration situations, Facebook is one of the first things people use. Facebook has its free basics program to encourage that, but it also is just widely used by people as a way to connect for free, right, without having to use text messages, etc.
Jeff Bezos not only announced Amazon would save the Expanse TV show at the Space Development Conference in Los Angeles, but also that his Blue Origin company wants to develop manufacturing on the moon. That may take 100 years to get going, but Bezos is not deterred. He has a proposal for a NASA partnership with Blue Origin to develop a lunar lander capable of delivering 5 tons of payload. Blue Origin's first orbital rocket, New Shepard, is scheduled to fly sometime in the 2020s.
I'm a lot of light as usual with Amazon. I'm not sure how much heat. Definitely Blue Origin is trying to get their name in the headlines the way SpaceX has. SpaceX, granted, has gotten their name in the headlines because of Elon Musk's penchant for hype, but also because they've actually reused rockets that went orbital. Blue Origin has reused a rocket, but it wasn't orbital. So it's time for Bezos, I think, to try to play that game a little bit, and saying moon colony certainly lights up the headlines. But what he's talking about is leading an effort to create a manufacturing base on the moon, which is something that's going to take decades to 100 years. That makes sense.
I love that we're living in the future. This sounds absurd. Okay. Just hearing it sounds absurd, but it's happening. So,
well, and that's why it works in the headlines, because you want to hear this. You want to hear like, oh, moon colonies, finally. We've been, dreaming about this since the 60s or before. Like, make it happen. But he's talking about mining developments or manufacturing, right? Saying, let's take advantage of the ubiquitous sunlight, the water that is trapped under the surface, the raw material in the legolith. There, we'll obviously have to bring some materials up from Earth, but he thinks it could still make sense and even be efficient to do manufacturing on the moon because of those natural advantages.
So what do we think is the over-under on Blue Origin and NASA actually creating a partnership?
It is so uncertain what NASA is going to do from administration to administration, because it's constantly being jerked from one side to the other. It's hard to say. I have no idea. Now, Bezos says that he'll go on doing this even if he doesn't get NASA's support. So may happen anyway. Meanwhile, China's ambassador to the UN, Shi Xiangjun, has invited all countries, regardless of their size and level of development, to participate in the China space station, scheduled to become operational in 2022. European Space Agency already has an agreement and has been sending astronauts to China for training. The International Space Station may cease operations as early as 2025 because the U.S. wants to end NASA funding for it, at least right now. NASA has a proposal for a smaller gateway orbital station nearer to the moon. A lot of people are skeptical that would take, which would leave, after 2025, China as the only orbital space station. And anyone who takes them up on this would then be able to use that as the only research platform in space. So this could be a huge shift in the focus of space research. Right now, the United States doesn't allow China to have access to the International Space Station. It would be interesting to see if China would allow the U.S. I doubt the U.S. would ask, but it would be interesting to see.
Well, in our current political landscape, I don't know. The U.S. and China seem to be making all sorts of trade deals. Obviously, what I'm referring to has nothing to do with space, but
sure. But it is unpredictable, right? On one day it's trade war, and the next day it's we have a deal. So who knows, right? And anything seems like it's as good a bet as another. It's just really hard to tell. It's entirely uncertain.
Do you think anybody's gonna have security concerns about being in a Chinese space station if we're being watched that way? I imagine the deals would have to be pretty tight on this.
Yeah. I mean, not for being watched so much. I mean, if you're on any space station, the ISS, they watch every minute you have, just for safety reasons. I think it's less about,
you don't just go there and kind of,
lounge,
go off the grid.
It's less about surveillance and more about sharing of technology. Like if you do research on the China space station, are you going to have to keep it under wraps? Are you going to have to share it with China first, or is it going to be as open to everyone to use? I would hope that it would be open, but it is cool to just, take the countries out of it. The idea of having a new orbital platform that is open and encouraged for all societies to build on. That's the ethos of space that I support.
What an idea. Humans enjoying space together.
Yeah. Just what the ISS is supposed to be and often is, if not entirely.
So there's a paper published in Annals of Oncology, which describes the results of an experiment using a neural network to spot skin cancers. Easy for me to say. In this study, 86.6% of skin cancers were identified from images by human dermatologists. The neural network identified 95%. The neural network also misdiagnosed fewer benign moles as malignant. The tool would be used to aid dermatologists in diagnosis, not replace doctor examinations. So if you're worried about robots taking your job, just relax for now.
Hey, man, when it comes to cancer, if the robot can do it better, bring it on.
Yeah, one of the reasons I want to talk about this story is it's an advancement. 18 months ago, I think we talked about on DTNS another story about improving on dermatologists' ability to catch melanomas or skin cancers. This is an improvement on that. It's getting even better. But the point of the story, this is what I like to hammer home, is not, and therefore doctors won't be needed anymore. Doctors are still entirely essential to spotting cancers, because this was only saying if you give a doctor an image, only, not a physical examination. How good are they? Doctors do get to do physical examinations. So this is saying, hey, the computer's really good at telling you where to look. And then the doctor has a better chance of catching even more of them as a part of that examination because the AI is assisting, not replacing. And that just makes humans better. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. I believe in the last time we talked about something similar to this, as you mentioned, even we quoted a couple of doctors who said, this is great. It cuts down on the time that we're doing something that we're trying to do best we can. But if AI can do this for us, we can actually be better doctors. So this doesn't actually, get anybody out of a job necessarily. It makes doctors more efficient. Live trivia apps are a hit worldwide. I used to play HQ every day. I no longer do, but that's a story for another time. It's not just HQ though. India has something called Loco. China has $1 Million Hero. For example, Panya Studios launched a live trivia show twice a day in Thailand in March. With zero advertising, the app has had more than 1 million downloads and reaches around 250,000 active weekly users. It's also talking about expanding to other Southeast Asian countries, Malaysia, Taiwan, Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Co-founder Jacob Peterson says he wants to expand to more than just trivia with other TV quality interactive shows.
Yeah, that's what fascinates me about this is all of these apps in their various regions have taken off. Sometimes, as with this one, without any kind of advertising. And the founders here, they're 2 Norwegians and a Thai who are the co-founders of Panya. They're talking about the fact that they think they can create a new way of watching television. Now, Netflix has obviously disrupted serialized television, but you always talk about live television or live stuff as being the province of the older broadcast networks. They're still got the domination on that. Well, this could be the chink in that armor. This could be the thing that moves and disrupts that by saying, not only are we live, but we're interactive. And granted, this is reality show type stuff. They talk in this article about a singing competition like The Voice being something they could branch into. But I could see this, if that takes off, then down the road moving into sports or news, etc.
Well, and that's something that companies like Twitter and Facebook and others have tried to do, that whole, we're watching something live together, let's add another layer so people can interact with us, with mixed results. I'm still of the mind that, I don't know, a lot of these apps are super fun. I loved HQ for a while. The notifications started to bother me, so I turned them off, and then there's no use anymore because I just forget when it's on. But really, the deep down fun of it is not unlike Jeopardy, which has been around for 400 years. So it also probably depends on the region that you're in. Certain countries, maybe trivia is, I don't know, a bigger deal. I don't know. Iyaz, what do you think?
It's one of those like flashbacks. Didn't Microsoft try this with Xbox Live with this like 1 versus 100 game? And they try to have like, you would show up to a game that you play against other people. Now this idea of appointment television or appointment trivia, I think it's hot for now, kind of like, Who Must Be a Millionaire? That was awesome for a while. And then you're like, I'm sick of this. It's usually like a cyclical thing. How do you get people to be somewhere live together? You just got to be live.
I'll go you one better. Microsoft did a live trivia show on Tech TV that did not do very well. Yeah. Then the Xbox Live thing.
So much so I don't even remember it.
That makes more sense. We'll do it on Xbox Live because then people have Xbox Live. This makes even more sense because, hey, smartphones, everybody's got a smartphone. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has an Xbox. So it makes more and more sense over time to me. The jury's still out, though. You're right. Is this just a flash in the pan? I mean, because Sarah, your reaction is also the reaction I hear to people who watch reality television sometimes. Like, oh, I was really into it for a while, and then it kind of my interest waned.
It's not the trivia format. It's not the live format. That's actually I thought that HQ's execution was really fun. And I really did like it for a while. I also think it's a novelty. And again, if you don't have time right at the precise moment, which many of us don't because we have busy lives, you kind of fall off and it just ends up being something that, oh yeah, I did that for a while. But I know that certainly in HQ's case, and I haven't tried any of the other apps, obviously, because they're international, but Still has a huge user base. People love that.
It got like 1.2 million for one particular stream one time, like set a record. Anyway, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes or so, subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines at dailytechheadlines.com. Now, a program in London has been providing some street performers with card readers, like credit card readers, using Sweden's payment firm Iyaz. The program has been so successful as a test that it's now going to be expanded over the coming months to cover all registered buskers, as they call the street performers in London. Performers said they saw a significant rise in contributions as people tapped to donate. And you US folks, I've experienced this over the past couple of years. Most credit card transactions internationally are tap, not swipe, not even chip. So PayPal is in the process of acquiring Iyaz. Not sure that really makes too much of a difference, but it is good news for PayPal, I guess, if this is going to expand. I'm more fascinated with this idea that after all of our discussions about cashless in previous episodes, one of the things was like, what about street performers? Somebody brought that up. Well, here you go. Apparently they've solved that part of the problem.
This is something I've been thinking about for a while. I haven't, I don't know. I've been to London lately, and I just now today learned that buskers is a word that means something. But if you think of a street performer, or for whatever other reason, somebody that you might encounter who's, asking for cash in order for a performance or some sort of entertainment or whatever, I thought, when cash really goes away, and I'm very pro ban cash just for myself because I hate cash. But what happens to all of these transactions that it's kind of a goodwill thing, or somebody makes you happy, and there's change, or you have a little something in your wallet? What happens? Because if nobody has cash anymore, nobody's going to give you money, and can you still make whatever living you were making before? So this is really interesting. I think, Tom, you told me earlier today that some of the payment, though, is set. So you can't say, I'll give you, 5 cents.
Yeah, well, I imagine you could do it that way. The Iyaz app works like Square or any of those others, but to make it easy, right? So that you don't have to sit there and interrupt the busker and say, can you set it to $1.50 or £1.20? They
Please
just
pause.
The picture,
wonderful for performance.
Yeah, the picture on the BBC website showed £2 tap to donate, so that you could just decide, oh, if I want to give this person £2, boom, I'll tap, done, right? And that was the end of it.
I keep looking at this and I'm thinking, if Iyaz does get enough penetration with this, and enough people, buskers, have this logo or something that looks familiar to people, it would take some of the fright away from it. But the idea of like, oh yeah, I'm going to tap my card and allow a credit card payment to some random person on the street who does have a busking license, because there's a difference between a busker and a street performer. A busker has a license, and they have to be authorized to be in that space. I found this out through either Netflix and or the MTA, because around the subway section, like the subway stations, they're everywhere. But if you don't have a license and you can't show it to a cop, they move you along. So if there's a standard and it's highly visible and it's got some security behind it and goodwill, maybe it would work. But I think that first couple of hurdles, it might be like the first days of e-commerce of like, put my credit card number on the internet. That's crazy. But we'll see how that goes over time. But with PayPal behind it, that might help as well. Apparently,
the test showed that didn't end up being a problem, that buskers were making more because someone would come up and like, all right, sure, I'll tap. Maybe I'll tap my phone. That way I can be sure that it's just the amount, right? And as soon as one person did it, it caused other people to kind of step up and go, oh, well, it seems like work for that person.
So
all right, I'll do it too.
So you need a busker and a buddy who's like, oh, this guy sounds great. Let me go over and tap. Look at that. Works no problem. Also, you should do it too.
I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I want to know sort of, like what kind of sign do you let folks know, as they're passing you on the subway, this is the way that you pay me. Thank you in advance. Like what replaces the hat?
Well, it's a chalkboard in this one. I don't know if this is going to be the standard, but it looks like a little chalkboard that's set up right next to the open suitcase that you throw your change in. And it says, tap to donate £2, backed by Iyaz and Busk in London.
Well, I mean, a part of me is like, modern world, it ruins everything, but at the same time, as Iyaz mentioned, especially in the New York subway, probably more than anywhere else, you encounter these really talented people, playing violin or whatever it is they're doing. And hey, we all gotta, evolve. And if people don't have cash anymore, I still want to support these folks.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, absolutely. And I have a different perspective on this than I would have 2 weeks ago, because I just spent 2 weeks in Australia and I used cash once. One time I bought a bratwurst in the Victoria Market in Melbourne, and that place didn't take credit cards. And I was shocked and stunned, and I had to scramble and borrow money from my sister because I didn't have enough cash on me. But even in Barrel, Mittagong, and the small towns, but Barrel only has like 13,000 people. All the places not only took credit cards, but they did tap, which meant I could use my phone. I would just walk up and they'd be even a little surprised. I'm like, oh, can I use my phone? They're like, oh yeah, no, that's easier, right? There was one place in Barrel where my phone tap didn't work. They said they took it, but it didn't happen. Well, I just pulled out my chip credit card and that worked fine. In fact, tapping was easier because as a US person, every time I did the credit card, they'd have to be like, oh, I guess we need a signature. That's weird. Okay, here you go. Sign this piece of paper. I don't know. But if I did the tap, it was all good. Like everything was fine. So this fits into that society. If you're in that kind of society, which by the way, Peter Wells and Raj Diyut, they've been telling us, and so have UK guys, like, who actually uses cash anymore? Like you just tap for everything. I experienced that. It's real. Like little places, like little vendors in markets, people on the street, food trucks, they all took tap to payment. It was weird to get back to the US and go to the drugstore and go, oh, right, CVS doesn't take Apple Pay. That's weird.
Right. I remember a few years ago, I think it was 2015. Anyway, recently, I went to Iceland, and it was the first time that I had forgotten to get money and, do a whole conversion thing, and I never needed it. And I was there for a week. And I remember being like, wow, I actually don't need local currency. Iceland is, pretty evolved in the sense, but you see that more and more. It's really interesting.
I did pull out some cash, and so I used it on a cab where I didn't have to. I could have paid with tap. It was fine. And then, of course, when I get back to LA, I didn't have any American cash left because I didn't have any Australian cash to even exchange. And the cab driver was a little miffed that I was like, can I pay by credit card? He's like, you don't have cash? So I get the difference in perspective.
Some things are global, aren't they?
Well, that's my point. In Australia, when I said, can I tap? They're like, yeah, sure. I mean, everybody does.
You mean when you got back to the States?
When I got back to LA is when the guy was like, what, you don't have cash? All right.
Right. It's like,
I probably have taken out money out of the ATM maybe once every 2-3 months just to have money in my wallet just in case I run into this scenario. But I'm more and more excited when I got a notification from Google Pay. They're like, your local supermarket takes Google Pay. And even though this is a nice little area where I'm in New York, it's a really old school supermarket. And I was shocked that you could use tap to pay. I was so excited. Yeah. So that $20 has been sitting in my wallet for way too long now. So I'm going to use it.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's the death of cash. I don't think cash is going away. I'm not bringing that. We're not bringing that element back, but tapping buskers, that just seems natural to me after 2 weeks of never using cash. Hey, thanks everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com and in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. We still get the emails, I hear, Sarah.
We sure do. One comes from our patron, Andrew. Thank you in advance. Andrew says, last week you were talking about Google taking the top spot in the smart speaker market. This was Q1 2018, which it succeeded Echo for the first time. Andrew says, there might be something going on here. Maybe some inflated numbers on Google's side. For example, I recently bought a bunch of Nest products for a new house, and I was given 5 free Google Home Minis. They might be giving more away as free promos and using them for their overall numbers.
That is usually when somebody brings up, well, that's shipped. How many did they sell? I'm like, sold and shipped usually end up being about the same. But Om Malik brought up the same thing on Twitter, and Om is a very thoughtful guy. So I think there might be something to it because they have been giving away so many. Remember we talked about all these Google donut stores where you could get donuts or win a home mini. It might be enough to at least cause a couple of percentage point difference there. I'm not sure how much, but you'd have to give a lot of them away to really move the needle, I still think.
Although 5 Google Home Minis, I mean, 1, great.
Yeah, I know.
But, it's kind of a big number.
Absolutely. We also got an email from Ted who said, more Roger Chang, more Roger Chang, more Roger Chang, in all caps, 3 times.
He said it 3 times.
Yeah. He said, hey, DTNS crew, like many people, I thought Roger Chang was just a producer, and his curmudgeonly demeanor seemed to indicate that he liked it that way. This is just a note that I've been enjoying Roger's thoughts while Tom has been away, and will be happy to get to hear more from him as part of the regular show. Chang, we can believe in. Ted.
I think that should be a DTNS shirt.
Chang, we can believe in.
I really do.
A picture of Roger.
Yeah.
Like,
Roger, veto me if you don't like the idea.
I would
but
wear one.
I would
wear one.
I would too. Yeah.
Roger, so, see, this is the problem, Ted. When I was gone, you heard more from Roger, probably more even in the pre and post show than during the show. But you just piped in and then went right away. Roger, Ted wants more of you.
But that's what I do.
Ted is not satisfied with that, Roger.
Okay.
Roger, you can't.
You're all wrong. Cash is
Can't wait
here
till Tom goes
forever.
on vacation to spit the knowledge that the people want.
I will
I guess you
interject that
can.
there are moments in my life where I use cash because I'm in a part of town I don't want to be known that I was in.
Oh, Roger's.
In Melbourne, you can tap for that stuff.
I mean, hey, my favorite cheeseburger place down the street, cash only.
So the title will be Tap That Melbourne.
No, that probably means something in slang somewhere that we don't that we don't want to use. But there you go, Ted. Chang, you can believe in.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, I'm sorry.
Tom, come
I'm out
on.
of practice. I'm sorry.
Ted and Andrew, thanks for the feedback. Thanks to everybody who gives us feedback. And also thanks to Iyaz Akhtar. Always good to have the gang back together. Iyaz, let folks know where they can keep up with everything else you're up to.
Go find me on twitter.com/Iyaz and go to that cnat.com place. We just launched a new show called Alphabet City. It's a show that covers everything to do with Google and its parent company, Alphabet, and anything that's related to it. So Android, YouTube, Waymo, whatever, that Jigsaw, anything you can think of that's related to this company, we talk about it every Tuesday. New episodes, and there's a new episode up right now.
Nice.
Excellent.
Good name.
My apologies that I didn't let a tarantula walk on my arm before I left for Australia, but I still plan to do that. And we have one more patron than last month that we're getting like right up against the end of the month tomorrow. So our goal every month is to have at least one more patron than last month. So give us a little margin there if you can and help us out at patreon.com/DTNS. Of course, if you've been watching the video, you've seen the fine Daily Tech News Show hats that Sarah and Roger have been wearing. I've got one too, and you could have one as well. Just head to dailytechnewsshow.com/store.
If you want to give us feedback, we want it. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Talking earbuds with Patrick Norton tomorrow. See you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Did I ever?
I was sure I would run across a tarantula in Australia. Never did.
I don't think
never
they
got
exist in
fatally
Australia.
attacked by an animal once the entire time I was there.
That's good to know. I was watching a video about like all these deadly animals in Australia.
Yeah.
My son, I think he was around 5 at the time, turns to me, he goes, "Dad, do we live in Australia?" I go, "No." He goes, "Oh, good."
Well, Roger said something about that before Tom went on vacation. And I was like, what deadly animals? I've never heard this about Australia.
Oh, really? Yeah. No.
Koalas, kangaroos.
You're not watching the
Koalas
same
will
programs
just
I am.
spit at you and
They're
scratch.
cute, cuddly.
You start writing deadly animals of Google autofills to Australia.
You know what? As someone who lives in an area of the U.S. where there's plenty of coyotes and mountain lions and oversized raccoons, it's not like this country is free of dangerous fauna.
Right. I'm like, what could Australia have that we don't have here?
Oh, they have a lot.
The Outback is a
Chain restaurant.
that too.
And a
The
super.
Outback will kill you. Either the Outback in Australia
Well, dingoes kill babies. I forgot about those.
That was a very tragic story, and people in Australia are sad that has become a meme because it's still considered a traumatic.
Well,
story.
the coyotes.
Yeah,
same thing. Particularly in the outskirts of LA.
Kangaroos are not nice. They can punch you.
During the mating season, they get the males can get quite punchy, literally.
Yeah. The wombats are big.
Yeah,
I never saw one though.
But wombats aren't dangerous. Other than
I saw pretty birds. That was really the only wildlife I saw. Apparently, there were a bunch of kangaroos off in the field when I was driving my sister and her husband to the church for the wedding. But I was so intent on not driving on the right side of the road that I missed them.
I was educating the show last week on the bin chickens, the dirty ibises.
Oh yeah, I did see a bunch of those in Sydney. I was listening to that. I think that was Friday's show, maybe, because I think I was already back in the U.S.
All right,
but yeah, they're everywhere, and they definitely stick their long little beaks into trash a lot.
It was evolved to fish, and now it's evolved to fish garbage.
Especially when they get fish out of the garbage.
All right, what do we got? There's tapping buskers. Chang we can believe in space no one can ask for taxes. What is one I like?
Oh, I'm sure they'll figure out a way to ask for taxes.
Oh, they will. Yeah. Nowhere stays safe for long.
Busking for Bitcoin, but Bitcoin wasn't really.
Yeah, there was no Bitcoin.
Buskers were no longer here. I'm all tapped out.
That's
pretty funny.
It's more like tapped in.
Well, no, it's like when like when they ask you, "Hey, can you wanna put something in the pot?" It's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm all tapped out." But
I see what you're saying.
Tapping buskers is pretty good.
Tapping buskers. Okay, we'll go with that. Tapping buskers.
Hooray! So, Tom, I know you were at your nephew's wedding. Were you officiating? I don't remember.
Oh, no. It was a traditional Catholic wedding. Priest was very cool.
Were there a lot of people there? She's Australian, right?
She is, yeah. It was small-ish, but yeah, she had all of her family and friends were there. She lives in a small town, or grew up in a small town. They live in Canberra now, which is the capital. But yeah, I'd say it was less than 100 people, but close.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a small wedding. I consider like, a handful of people.
We had 150 at ours. Most of them Eileen's family.
I think the biggest wedding I ever went to, it was a Midwestern kind of Chicago area. And it was, I think the total was like 350 people.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah, it was family and friends, and one of those weddings where it's like all your mother's friends get invited, and then they, whatever. And I remember just being like, if this was my wedding, you would have no FaceTime with anybody. And everybody seemed to have a great time, but it was huge. Very overwhelming.
I'm going to say there were 70 or 80 people there.
Yeah. See,
and
that's
there
nice.
were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12 Americans, 13.
Well,
so wait, did your nephew have any friends from the Australian side or no?
He did. He had one of his groomsmen was a guy he's in grad school with for archaeology, who's Australian. I had a couple other Australian friends there, and Kate, his wife, has friends obviously from Australia. And then he had 2 groomsmen and 1 friend from America who came over with their girlfriends. So there were 6 Americans right there. U of I people. And then me, my brother-in-law, my sister, Eileen, Ben's grandma, and our family friend. I think that was it. All the U.S. people.
that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Good.
Yeah.
Also, I forgot I had cannibalized the power cord from the iPad before vacation to take with me on the trip. and I didn't bring it back down, and the iPad almost died in the middle of the show. I'm glad it made it. I just got the I got like with 7 minutes left in the show, I got the battery at 10% warning. I'm like, ooh. And I just got the 5% warning. So there you go.
Those are those moments where before the show you were like, maybe we need like a couple more minutes to just make sure like nothing broke while I was gone, but you just can't
catch everything.
Predict it all. Yeah.
It's not like Pokemon. You can't catch all of them.
You can't catch them all.
Iyaz, Alphabet City sounds like a fun show.
It's really sarcastic and fast and dumb. So basically, like, it's pure me, and I'm loving that letting me do this because it's either gonna fail spectacularly because it's me, or it's gonna do really well because it's me. But otherwise, we'll see how it goes. It's just really sarcastic and stupid, and some of the jokes are groan worthy.
I'm sure it's not stupid.
Oh,
sarcastic.
No. You get the vital information you need on the show, but you might actually laugh, which is weird because when I was practicing the script in front of a couple of people as they were setting up the studio, they were actually laughing at the jokes. And I'm like, that's weird. That usually doesn't happen. So it might
are you laughing with, at? It doesn't matter. Just keep laughing. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, there's a lot of humor in the show, and it's not like intended to be comedic in general, but it's very informative and witty, and nice. Lots of me there. And our cheap cardboard set, which is phenomenal, I will say.
Well, I'm excited to check it out. The nice thing about Alphabet is there are a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. To cram it into like 5 minutes is it's a little strange. I think I probably could easily go 7 to 10 minutes on every episode because there's always something else. Like Verily has a smart diaper. Who's Verily, you wonder? Like it's Alphabet owns Verily, which used to be
the health one. Is that right?
That used to be Google Life Sciences. Okay. They also have another one for health. They just have so many different ones off the top of my head. I can't remember all of them. I think Jigsaw was trying to stop some kind of voter fraud stuff, and X, they actually contacted me directly. They're like, hey, if you want to know anything about Project Loon or our energy kites, I'm like, energy kites? What the heck are energy kites?
Like, yes, tell me more.
They are literally these giant freaking, like, they look like biplanes with a bunch of wind turbines. They just put them up in the air and they harvest the wind.
The wind.
It's nuts what they're doing over there. So,
ooh, that sounds like a sci-fi series.
Harvest the Wind.
Wind Harvest.
Like a book title.
Harvest by Robert Silverberg.
Well, I'm in a deep depression now that Killing Eve season 1 is over. And
oh, really? That good, huh?
And the season finale of Handmaid's Tale I finished last night as well.
I've got a lot of Handmaid's Tale.
No spoilers, but you know.
At least Expanse continues, so I can pay for another season.
Maybe you could cheer up tomorrow with like new Kimmy Schmidt or something, because Handmaid's Tale, I tried to watch that and I was like, I'm really sad right now.
We're behind on Handmaid's Tale because of the vacation, and it's going to take a long time for us to catch up because we can't watch more than one of those in a row.
Like, I can't even watch it. It's so depressing.
Well, I gave up. It's funny. A friend of mine who was all caught up because I was behind too. She was like, "Let's talk about the finale," and I was like, "I'm like 3 behind. I don't know. Sometimes I'm just not in the mood for all that." But it's a really good show.
Yeah, I think my semi-depressing, awful show or great show is Westworld. Like that, I'm obsessed with, and it can get pretty dark and dirty, but I still find the fun in the game of it because you can always find more information online about it. So I guess maybe
watched that. We watched one episode on vacation. We were I think that was the only show we actually made an effort to watch while we were traveling.
That might be my jury slot for now. Maybe I can move over to Handmaid's Tale eventually. I really tried.
It is what it is.
Right.
If you don't want to be in that sort of really bad dystopian mood, not the show for you.
And Arrested Development season 5.
I'm gonna run and get my cable.
Is up right now. 8 episodes. I don't know if it's 2 parts this season or not. Can't remember.
I actually haven't watched it since it got rebooted.
Oh, so they
I know that was a while ago.
No, but here's the other thing. They released a recut version of season 4 on Netflix because the season 4 that they originally released was focused on a character at a time. So basically you followed like Michael the whole time. You followed George Michael the whole time. And the stories kind of overlapped. You put it together yourself, essentially. then Netflix put out a remix version entirely, which is much more like a regular season. And the stories.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that happened earlier this month before they announced that season 5 was coming out this month. It's kind of like a placeholder kind of thing. They call it, I forget what they call the remix. It's something silly, but it's a little bit grating at times, I will say. I don't know if it's because the humor hasn't aged well or the fact that for season 4, they couldn't get everybody in the same like studio at the same time or the same lot, because you can tell like, oh, it's a body double from the back. Or you can tell that this person's in with a green screen. You're like, oh, that's a little weird, but still, still the same kind of humor.
Yeah, I think I heard enough diehard fans being mixed on the new season, which was what, I don't know, 2 years ago when that aired on Netflix for the first time. So I was like, but I'll run out of shows eventually. I'll get to it.
Oh, you can't do that with HBO. They have like something new like every couple of weeks. I think they have something called Succession. Did you see that trailer for that? It's kind of like
sort of fake Fox Empire.
Yeah, it looks really fun, I think. Maybe that'll be my new depressing show. When did this thing come out?
Have you watched Riverdale, Sarah?
I tried to watch it personally.
I haven't, but the exterior shots are actually filmed in Sebastopol, California at my old high school.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, little tribute for everybody. But I haven't seen it's in, I don't know.
Is it a murder thing, mystery?
Yeah. Well, it's got continuing mysteries. So there starts with a murder, but then it moves in. There's another mystery, and
there's just a lot of seedy underbelly to Riverdale.
Yeah, it's not as dark as I expected. Eileen is homesick, and she was sick yesterday, binging on it. So I've been catching it kind of by osmosis, and it's well done. It's Greg Berlanti. He's the guy that does all the CW superhero movies or TV shows too.
Do you find that it's geared towards a younger audience, or is that just it's set in a high school and that's just part of it?
It's mostly just set. I mean, there are parts of it that are definitely geared towards a younger audience, but it is trying to not be exclusionary.
Right.
It's definitely, you don't feel like, oh, I'm just watching such a teen drama. Like it is.
Right. Yeah.
It is more sophisticated than that.
I actually started watching Dear White People. Don't know if anybody's seen that.
Oh, on Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix. I missed the whole first season and I just jumped in at season 2. Like, I'll give this a try. So, I probably have some catching up to do. And it's one of those shows where I'm like, there are certain kind of millennial and younger things going on here where I realize I'm not totally the target audience, but I think it's really good. It's a clever show.
I'm impressed with how complex they handle the issues.
Yeah.
Like it would be forgivable for them to oversimplify the complexity of racial issues. And they don't. They actually do a really good job of like making sure that nothing is simple. There's not like a simple answer to everything, because there isn't really. I was impressed by that show quite a bit.
Yeah. Me too.
Have you seen all of season 2?
Yeah, I'm done.
The argument between the two main characters in the radio when he's trying to interview her in the radio studio just blew me away.
Yeah. You have these scenes where you're like, this is really, some deep stuff. And they kind of do some style stuff that's for, production people is I found pretty cool. Anyway.
Thanks to Peter Wells for the hat, by the way, the Sydney Swans AFL hat.
Who are the Swans' biggest rival?
I don't know. Let's find out.
And you don't necessarily need to.
I'm going to go on a limb and say it's the Nets.
Apparently the Swans are not very good because everyone else was kind of mocking when I'd bring up the Swans.
Well, a friend of mine was in Vegas over the weekend. He happens to be a Capitals fan, hockey, because he's from DC. And they're playing the Vegas Knights. So it was, from what I hear, torture to be in Vegas as a Capitals fan.
Now, apparently West Coast and Hawthorn are two recent rivals of Sydney, but there's also a local rivalry with Greater Western Sydney.
So wait, that's just not a...
Greater Western Sydney was added in the 2012 season.
Well, on that note, any final words before I stop the stream?
No, thanks again to everybody for helping make the past 2 weeks easy for Roger and Sarah. And big thanks to Roger and Sarah for making enjoyable shows. I had no doubt they would, and they did. And it was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. Glad to have Tom back, though.
And we'll see you all tomorrow with Patrick Norton.
Good.